Everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Art of Photography. Today I'm going to do a subject that's a little bit different. I actually got an email and somebody had requested that I talk about this. And I think it's really important because, you know, in general, probably 90% of the people who watch this podcast or look at other videos online looking at photography tutorials have day jobs. And the question that I had was, how do you balance photography as a hobby that you're trying to get serious at with having a day job? And as most of you know, photography, depending on how serious you are about it, and I assume if you're watching the show, you probably are pretty serious about it. I certainly am. And how do you balance out, pretty much I think it's a time thing. You know, how do you balance out having time to do photography, improve your skills, get better, and have a day job? And I'm not just talking about people who are aspiring to be professionals, although certainly applies in that case. But I think there's a bigger section of people who are perfectly content with not doing photography as a living, and that's okay. You don't have to. In fact, I think sometimes I've done both, where photography has been my vocation, primarily doing shoots, things like that, to where I've had a day job like I do now, believe it or not. And really for me, I think photography is more enjoyable in the second scenario. And the reason why is because when you remove clients from the equation, things get easier. A lot of times when you're shooting photography as a career, there is a layer to that, which isn't a bad thing, but when I shot professionally, it's always a balance between what you're doing for clients and what the client wants. And then I've always kept my personal work separate from that, because that's work for me. That's what I want to do, and that's what I enjoy doing. And those pictures are images that I will use in gallery shows, things like that. I found that client work lends itself less to that. I mean, you can do really good client work, but sometimes you're not allowed to use it for personal reasons too, if the client has bought all the rights to the images. So anyway, it's an interesting balance. So, you know, for our purposes here, let's say you are a photographer, full-time even, that's your day job. So how do you balance trying to get better, what you're doing in your spare time? How do you balance all this stuff with, you know, with things that come during the day, you know, that take up a bunch of time? It's interesting too, because I did an interview with Stephen Cottrell, who does a podcast that you should probably check out if you want, called Photography 121 or 1-to-1, which is available on iTunes. And he did an interview with me with that, and he was asking me about balancing the day job and staying prolific and doing work and constantly pushing yourself to get better. I think the secret for me, and this is what's worked for me, is persistence and consistency. So it's kind of two things. And on the one hand, you want to be very persistent, because sometimes that time is limited, particularly when you think about, okay, you know, you have X number of hours in a day, and you have to go work for some of those hours, and you may be thinking about photography during those, and we're gonna come back to that because that's key. Most of you, if you're real serious about this, do think about it all the time. You get home, and generally, if you're married or have kids, then you have dinner time with your family, and you certainly don't want to sacrifice that. So sometimes you're very limited in the evening hours as to what you can do. You also have weekends, maybe you have some vacation time, sometimes you get a day off for a holiday, something like that, and those are really key times. I think, one, it's important, particularly if you do have family situations like that, that you communicate to the people in your family that you do want some time to dedicate to that and really carve it out. I noticed, particularly with myself and other people that I know, sometimes the problem is if you don't communicate that clearly and you think you're just going to work it in. I mean, it really is something you have to pay attention to and strive for, and so it's really important to communicate that. And people are respectful, and as long as it's not extreme, they'll give you that time to do that. Having said that, then that time becomes very valuable to get stuff done and not just necessarily piddle around or you know, go shoot whatever and regurgitate the same stuff you've been doing. I mean, I'm talking about getting serious about practicing, trying to get better. The other thing that's extremely key for me, and I'm going to share this with you, is this. This is, and I've talked about this on the show before, and I thought maybe this is a good time to go ahead and show you, because I've gotten real serious again about it lately. This is my notebook, and the notebook is so key to what I do. I use a Moleskine notebook. There are others that are much cheaper. You don't have to have this particular model. It's just a notebook. This isn't like cameras where you're gonna, you know, it needs to have binding and paper. Those are the kind of prerequisites. This is a newer notebook I've started, and what I do is I carry this with me all the time. I have it at work with me, I have it in meetings, I have it just whenever, because here's the deal. You're going to come up with ideas at times for things, and I mean, you can see I do some sketching in here, but really what I do is write things down, a lot of ideas. So a lot of it's text, and it doesn't matter how it rolls out in here. I mean, sometimes I just flip it to the side. I was, you know, on a train one day and just had some ideas, and this was the comfortable way to write. No one really is going to look at this unless you're doing a podcast and you're showing it to people, but I didn't show it to you that closely. But this is where you're going to keep your ideas. And this is important because we're talking about that consistency and being able to come around things later and revisit. And it's interesting because, and I'm probably going to get some of this wrong, but it doesn't matter. I believe it was a musician, I think it was Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, who was talking about, in this interview that I read, this was years ago, that, you know, he comes up with ideas for songs, riffs for the guitar, things like that, usually right before he falls asleep at night. And I think a lot of us are like that. I think most creative people are like that. I'm obviously not a neurologist, so I'm not going to pretend to tell you how your brain works. But with all the books on creativity that I've read and checked out, one thing that stays pretty consistent is there are times where your mind kind of starts to relax, and usually these are when you get up in the morning or right before you go to bed at night, or sometimes during the day at lunch, where you don't have a lot on your mind. And your brain kind of has this opportunity to open up and come up with ideas for things. And I think we've all had that. Like maybe you have an idea for a specific photograph you want to take, or you have an idea for a technique that you want to get into and research more, or maybe you have an idea if you shoot film and do a darkroom, you want to do a certain process, the historical process that you've never learned. So there's something there and you have an idea around this, and it's different for every one of us, but usually for me, I have an idea of some specific images that I want to see come out of that. Well, they may be refined later on, but what happens is when we have these ideas in those times where our mind is starting to rest a little bit, they go away. And when you get stressed out with the day-to-day and more important things in your life, well, arguably more important, but more pressing things in your life, like, you know, getting to work on time, I've got this meeting I've got to prepare for, I've got XYZ to do, we tend to forget those things and they go away. And I think just about any musician or any artist could tell you that they've had great ideas that they've completely lost because they didn't write them down in the heat of that moment. Now, when I write these down, they don't always come out exactly like I had originally intended. It's kind of like keeping a dream diary where, you know, you remember it being a specific way and then when you revisit it later, you're like, wow, that's really weird. But they at least serve as a catalyst for what I'm going to do down the road in the future. And that's really important because I have a whole book here, and I've filled other ones up, of ideas that I have. And how does this come back to managing your time when having a day job? This is really key for me because I can write things down at the times that I don't have a camera with me. I think photographers who do photography full-time for a living have this same issue because sometimes you're really concentrating on the shot that you're doing right there, the particular project, the client, and you have all these other things, especially if you're doing a big photography shoot, you have assistants, there's set designers, there's makeup artists, people like that. It becomes really difficult to balance all this stuff, and sometimes you might have a great idea and you're definitely not going to execute it in that moment. Again, that's when having this thing and being able to write stuff down is really crucially important. I actually carve time during the day to set aside to sit here and work with my sketchbook. And what I will do with that time typically is if I have ideas, I will write them down. Sometimes I'll go review ideas that I had before and flesh them out with maybe other possibilities, other ideas, quotes that I've heard people say that I don't want to forget. I mean, it really can be anything. And it's just basically just a second brain of sorts that you can use to sort that kind of creative energy out with. And then sometimes if I really don't know what to do and I have carved that 30 minutes usually in the morning to look through my sketchbook, I'll go back and revisit earlier ideas. And you'll find that there's things that, oh, you know what, that was a really cool idea I thought of like 2 years ago. I should revisit that because that's, you know, and so these things are going to help balance, you know, the daytime hour time commitment out a little bit, I think, for most people. Sometimes there could be ideas of, you know, a certain location you want to shoot or something that is more exotic that you don't have in your environment to shoot on. Sometimes, you know, you can plan a vacation around that. You know, I don't know, something weird if you want to go shoot the Eiffel Tower in Paris, you know, maybe you could try to find a way to make that happen. But having a shot, I mean, that's an interesting example because, I mean, how many shots of the Eiffel Tower are there? Billions, you know. And maybe you have an idea to do something that's different, or you want to do something that's different. So you're working that out, and maybe you draw in here, and I can't draw. I mean, my drawing skills are very crude at best, but they're good enough so that I know what I was referring to, and I think that's the most important part. Anyway, I hope this has helped out a little bit. Keeping a sketchbook is extremely key to all this. And anyway, I hope you'll find some time to find something that works for you that's very similar. So anyway, once again, Spin the Art of Photography, thanks for watching. If you haven't seen our website, check us out online at theartofphotography.tv. And my name once again is Ted Forbes. You can follow me on Twitter for more information and cool links that I tweet out during the day and stuff like that. And that address is twitter.com/Ted Forbes. Thanks for watching.